Part 1. The Execution. The throne room was massive, carved from black volcanic stone that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Rebecca Hayes stood behind a force field barrier, her hands pressed against the invisible wall as she watched her daughter being dragged across the polished floor. Emily's knees scraped against the stone, leaving small streaks of blood, but the guards didn't slow down. Around them, thousands of draconians filled the gallery seats. Their scales glinted under the red lighting, ranging from deep crimson to obsidian black. They were huge creatures, each one standing at least 8 feet tall, with wings folded against their backs and tails that swished with anticipation. This wasn't just a trial. It was entertainment for them. Please? Rebecca's voice cracked as she screamed. She's just a scientist. She didn't know about your restrictions. Nobody listened. The crowd was too loud, their voices mixing into a thunderous roar that echoed off the high ceiling. Some were chanting in their native language, words that Rebecca's translator implant couldn't quite process through her panic. At the center of the room stood Commander Valtrax, the head of the Draconian High Council. His scales were the darkest Rebecca had ever seen, almost like looking into empty space. Scars covered his face and arms, proof of countless battles. He raised one clawed hand and the crowd immediately fell silent. That kind of power terrified Rebecca. These beings had conquered 15 star systems. They'd been spacefaring for over 12,000 years. Compared to them, humanity was nothing. Emily was forced to her knees on a raised platform. Her hands were bound behind her back with energy cuffs that glowed an ugly orange color. She looked so small up there, so fragile compared to the massive aliens surrounding her. Her dark hair was matted with sweat, and her gray jumpsuit was torn in several places. But her eyes were still defiant. Emily Hayes, Valtrax's voice boomed across the chamber. He didn't need a microphone. His voice just carried that way, deep and resonant like thunder. You have been found guilty of unauthorized biological study of draconian anatomy. You entered restricted medical facilities. You accessed sacred genetic archives. You violated the oldest laws of our empire. I was trying to help. Emily shouted back, her voice thin but steady. Your people are suffering from a genetic disease. I found a potential cure in your own DNA sequences. I was going to share it with your doctors. Silence. Valtrax slammed his staff against the floor and the entire room shook. You do not speak unless given permission. Your intentions are irrelevant. The law is absolute. Rebecca felt her heart pounding so hard it hurt. She'd been a diplomat for 20 years, had negotiated treaties with dozens of alien species, but none of that mattered now. The Draconians didn't care about diplomatic immunity. They didn't care about human protests. In their eyes, Emily had committed a crime worthy of death. The sentence is execution, Valtrax continued, his yellow eyes sweeping across the crowd. As per our ancient traditions, the guilty party's remains will be offered to Morthax, the great devourer who dwells in the crimson abyss. May her flesh satisfy his eternal hunger. The crowd erupted in approval, their roars shaking the walls. Rebecca felt her legs give out, but her security detail caught her. 2 human officers, both wearing the blue uniforms of Earth's diplomatic corps, held her up as she sobbed. No, please, you can't do this. Rebecca tried to push forward, but the force field held firm. I'll do anything. Take me instead. Please. Emily turned her head, finding her mother's face in the crowd. For a moment, the fear left her expression. She smiled, the same smile she'd had since she was a little girl. It's okay, Mom. I love you. Tell Dad I. She never finished the sentence. The executioner, a massive draconian wearing ceremonial armor, brought down his blade. It was made of some kind of energy rather than metal, glowing white-hot. The cut was clean. Instant. Emily's head separated from her body without any resistance. Rebecca's scream echoed through the chamber, raw and primal. She collapsed completely, her security team barely keeping her from hitting the floor. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The world had just ended. The guards picked up Emily's body and head like they were garbage, carrying them toward the back of the throne room. There, hidden behind Valtrax's massive throne, was the entrance to the Crimson Abyss. A circular opening in the floor, maybe 30 feet across, that descended into darkness. Even from where Rebecca knelt, she could feel the heat rising from it. Without ceremony, without respect, they threw Emily's remains into the chasm. The body tumbled end over end, disappearing into the red glow far below. The crowd cheered louder. Justice is served, Valtrax announced. Let this be a lesson to all who would dare violate our sacred laws. The Empire is absolute. Rebecca's security team tried to help her stand, but she pushed them away. She crawled forward until her face pressed against the force field, staring at that black hole where her daughter had vanished. The Draconians were already leaving, talking amongst themselves, treating this like it had been nothing more than a routine court case. They had no idea what they'd done. No idea what humanity really was. The Draconians saw humans as weak, young, barely worth noticing. They'd been in the Galactic Council for only 50 years. They had no real military power. No ancient technologies. They were expected to accept this judgment, file their protests and move on. But as Rebecca knelt there, something changed in her eyes. The grief was still there, crushing and absolute. But underneath it, something else was growing. Something cold and patient. The Draconians had made a terrible mistake. They just didn't know it yet. The first week after Emily's execution, Rebecca didn't leave her quarters. The human diplomatic staff heard her crying through the walls at all hours. They brought her food that she didn't eat. They offered counseling that she refused. The Earth government sent messages demanding she return home, but she ignored every single one. Then on day 8 the crying stopped. Rebecca emerged from her room looking different. Her eyes were red and swollen, but they were dry. She walked to her desk, sat down, and began working through diplomatic correspondence like nothing had happened. Her assistant, a young man named Kevin who'd been with her for 3 years, didn't know what to say. "Ambassador? Should you take more time?" "No," Rebecca said simply. "I have work to do." By week 2, Earth Command sent a battle group to the edge of the Draconian system. 3 heavy cruisers and 2 destroyers, all armed and ready. They sent a coded message to Rebecca asking for permission to enter Draconian space. The entire diplomatic corps expected her to say yes. Expected her to demand justice, to threaten war, to do something. Instead, Rebecca sent them home. "Return to Earth," her message read. "Your presence here is not required. I'm handling this through proper diplomatic channels." The admiral in charge of the battle group sent back 3 requests for clarification. Rebecca ignored all of them. The ships waited at the system's edge for 2 days before finally turning around and jumping back to human space. The Draconian intelligence officers monitoring human communications found this deeply strange. They'd been preparing for threats, for sanctions, for angry speeches at the Galactic Council. But Rebecca was doing none of those things. She attended diplomatic functions. She smiled politely at Draconian officials. She never once mentioned her daughter. Valtrax called an emergency meeting with his top advisors in his private chamber. The room was smaller than the throne room but no less impressive, with walls covered in weapons from 1,000 conquered worlds. "Something's wrong with the human," Valtrax said, pacing back and forth. "I've dealt with grieving parents before. They rage. They threaten. They break down. But Hayes? She's acting like nothing happened." His chief intelligence officer, a lean Draconian named Korthus, pulled up holographic displays showing Rebecca's movements over the past 3 weeks. "She's following her normal routine, Commander. Attending meetings, filing reports, eating in the diplomatic quarters cafeteria. Her biometric readings show elevated stress hormones, but that's to be expected." "Then why does this feel wrong?" Valtrax growled. "Perhaps humans process grief differently than we assumed," Korthus suggested. "Or perhaps she's planning something." On day 21, Rebecca did something that shocked everyone. She requested a formal audience with the High Council. Not to protest. Not to demand anything. She just wanted to ask for permission to perform a morning ritual. Valtrax almost denied the request out of pure suspicion. But his advisors pointed out that refusing would look bad to the other Galactic Council members. The Draconians had a reputation for being brutal, but they weren't supposed to be cruel to grieving families. So Rebecca stood before the High Council for the second time in 3 weeks. This time she wasn't crying or screaming. She wore a simple black dress, her hair pulled back, her expression calm and respectful. "Honored Council," she began, her voice steady. "In my culture we have specific rituals for honoring the dead. I would like permission to perform such a ritual at the edge of the Crimson Abyss, where my daughter's remains were laid to rest." The council members exchanged glances. Valtrax studied Rebecca's face, looking for any sign of deception. He found nothing. "What does this ritual involve?" he asked. "I will scatter ceremonial ashes and speak prayers in our oldest language. It brings peace to both the living and the dead. It's harmless, I assure you." The council debated for 10 minutes. Some argued it was too risky. Others pointed out that refusing would seem petty. Eventually they agreed, but with conditions. Rebecca would be accompanied by guards. She would have exactly 10 minutes. She could bring nothing but the ceremonial ashes. The next day, 4 draconian guards escorted Rebecca to the throne room. The chasm looked exactly as she remembered it, a gaping wound in the floor that radiated heat. She could hear distant sounds from far below, like wind through a cave or breathing. The guards watched as Rebecca pulled out a small silver container. She opened it, revealing gray ash that caught the red light from the chasm. She began walking slowly around the edge, letting the ash fall into the darkness. Her lips moved, forming words in a language the Draconians' translators couldn't identify. It sounded ancient, primal. One of the guards thought he saw her smile for just a second. But when he looked again, her face was composed, sad, respectful. He decided he'd imagined it. Rebecca finished her ritual and bowed toward the chasm. "Thank you for allowing me this closure," she told the guards. They escorted her back to the diplomatic quarters. The report filed to Valtrax said the ceremony was uneventful. That night everything changed. The monitoring station responsible for tracking Morthax in the Crimson Abyss noticed something unusual. The seismic sensors that always registered the ancient dragon's movements had gone quiet. Completely quiet. The technician on duty assumed it was a malfunction and ran diagnostics. Everything checked out fine. By morning, the silence became impossible to ignore. Morthax hadn't moved in over 12 hours. The feeding platforms, where offerings were left for the dragon, showed no signs of being disturbed. The heat signatures from the lower caverns had dropped by 15 degrees. Valtrax received the report during his morning briefing. "What do you mean he's silent?" "No movement, Commander. No sounds. It's like he's asleep maybe?" "Morthax doesn't sleep. He hasn't slept in 3,000 years. Valtrax stood up, his tail lashing in agitation. "Send a reconnaissance team. I want to know what's happening down there." 5 of their best soldiers suited up in environmental gear and descended into the chasm. They had cameras, weapons, and communication equipment. The whole command center watched their helmet feeds as they rappelled down past the upper caverns, past the first feeding platforms, deeper into the darkness. The team leader's voice came through clear at first. "Approaching the second cavern level. No visual on Morthax yet. It's unusually cold down here." They kept descending. The walls showed claw marks, old scorch marks from dragon fire. Normal. Then the team leader stopped. "Wait. Do you see that?" The camera focused on the stone wall. Something was carved there. Fresh. The letters glowed faintly as if still hot from whatever cut them. "What language is that?" someone asked. "Human," Corthas whispered in the command center. "That's human writing." Before anyone could respond, the team leader's camera showed movement in the shadows. Something fast. Something wrong. His scream cut through the speakers then turned to static. All 5 camera feeds went dark simultaneously. Valtrax tried raising them on communications. Nothing. He sent the command to activate their emergency beacons. No response. The reconnaissance team was gone. And somewhere in the darkness of the Crimson Abyss, something that had once been Emily Hayes was waking up. Part 3. The truth emerges. The mining crew had been drilling on the far side of the Draconian homeworld for 3 months. It was routine work, boring but necessary. They were looking for deposits of crystalline ore used in their faster-than-light engines. The crew of 8 workers had no idea they were about to discover something that would shake their entire civilization. The drill bit broke through into empty space at 3:47 in the afternoon local time. The foreman, an older Draconian named Thros, shut down the equipment and sent a probe into the cavity. The readings showed a massive cavern system, completely unmapped. That was unusual. The Draconians had surveyed their homeworld thousands of years ago. There shouldn't be any uncharted caves left. "Command, this is Mining Outpost 7-4, Thros radioed. "We've hit something weird. Requesting permission to investigate." Permission came back within an hour. "Take a small team, document everything, report back." Standard procedure. Thros and 3 others suited up and crawled through the opening their drill had made. Their headlamps cut through the darkness, revealing a cavern so large they couldn't see the far wall. The air was stale but breathable. The temperature was cold, much colder than it should be this deep underground. "Look at the size of this place," one of the miners whispered. "How did we never find this before?" They walked deeper, their boots crunching on loose rock. The floor was covered in something that looked like ash, gray and powdery. Then Thros's light caught something massive ahead. He stopped so suddenly the miner behind him bumped into his back. By the ancient fires, Thros breathed. Was a dragon. But not just any dragon. Even dead and shriveled, Thros recognized the shape, the size, the distinctive horn pattern. Every Draconian child learned about Morthax in school. The Great Devourer. The Eternal Guardian. The beast that had lived for 3,000 years in the Crimson Abyss. But this wasn't the Crimson Abyss. This was miles away on the complete opposite side of the planet. And Morthax was dead. The dragon's body looked wrong. The scales were dull and cracked. The massive chest cavity had collapsed inward. It was like looking at a balloon that had been deflated, or a piece of fruit that had been left in the sun too long. Something had drained Morthax from the inside out. "Get command on the line," Thros ordered, his voice shaking. "Get them now." One of the miners pointed her light at the wall behind the corpse. "Foreman, what is that?" Carved into the solid stone, each letter 3 feet tall and glowing with residual heat, were 2 words in a language Thros didn't recognize. But his suit's translator helpfully provided the meaning in Draconian script. "Thank you." The message was in English. Within 2 hours, the cavern was flooded with military personnel, scientists, and government officials. Within 4 hours, Valtrax himself arrived by drop ship. He stood in front of Morthax's corpse, his expression unreadable. "How did it get here?" one of his advisors asked. "I don't know," Valtrax said quietly. "But I know who does." He didn't bother with formalities. Valtrax brought 20 armed guards to the human diplomatic quarters and kicked the door open without knocking. Rebecca was sitting at her desk, drinking tea, reading something on a data pad. She didn't look surprised to see him. "Hello, Commander," she said calmly. "I was wondering when you'd figure it out." Valtrax's claws extended. "What have you done? What is the meaning of this?" "The meaning of what?" Rebecca took another sip of tea. "You'll have to be more specific." "Morthax is dead," Valtrax roared. "Dead and drained, with a human message carved above his corpse. You did something during that ritual." "Tell me what?" Rebecca set down her cup carefully. "I scattered ashes. That's all. Don't lie to me." "I'm not lying. I did exactly what I said I would do." She stood up slowly, meeting Valtrax's eyes without fear. "You asked me what you did. Let me tell you a story about humanity, Commander. One your intelligence service should have discovered before you executed my daughter." She activated her desk's holographic projector. Images filled the air between them, complex diagrams of DNA sequences, protein chains, and microscopic machines. "My daughter was a brilliant scientist," Rebecca continued. "She studied alien biology because she wanted to understand the universe. But she was also studying human biology. Do you know what she found?" Valtrax stared at the holograms, his anger mixing with confusion. "Billions of years ago, before your empire existed, before most current species evolved, there was another race. We call them the predecessors. They seeded life across the galaxy, experimented with genetics, built wonders we still can't comprehend. Then they vanished. Everyone assumes they went extinct." Rebecca zoomed in on a strand of DNA, highlighting specific sequences that pulsed with light. "They didn't go extinct, Commander. They transformed. They built something into their own genetic code before they disappeared. Microscopic machines, smaller than atoms, woven into every cell. These nanomachines stay dormant for an entire lifetime. But when the body dies, when the heart stops and the brain shuts down, they activate." Valtrax felt a chill run down his spine. "What are you saying?" "The nanomachines preserve consciousness. They record everything that makes a person who they are. Then, if given the right conditions, sufficient energy and raw biological material, they rebuild the body. They bring the person back." Rebecca's smile was terrible to see. "And humanity, Commander, is the direct descendant of the predecessors. We carry those same nanomachines in our DNA." "That's impossible," Valtrax whispered. "Is it? You threw my daughter's body into a massive cavern filled with geothermal energy. You gave her the corpse of an ancient, powerful dragon full of exotic DNA and bioelectrical energy. You handed her everything she needed to resurrect on a silver platter." The hologram shifted, showing a simulation of nanomachines consuming organic matter, replicating, rebuilding. "The ashes I scattered weren't ceremonial," Rebecca said softly. "They were catalyst particles designed to accelerate the process. Emily was already regenerating, but I helped her along. The nanomachines consumed Morthax from the inside out, absorbed his DNA, integrated it into her new body. She was probably conscious within days. Fully mobile within 2 weeks." Valtrax's scales had gone pale. The reconnaissance team was her first test. She needed to see what she'd become. What you'd made her into. Rebecca walked closer to Valtrax, fearless despite the guards pointing weapons at her. "She's not entirely Emily anymore. The resurrection process changes people. Merges them with whatever biological material was available. Your dragon's DNA is part of her now. His strength. His longevity. His fire. Where is she? Valtrax demanded. Rebecca's smile widened. Oh, Commander. She's hunting. She's out there right now, finding everyone who participated in her execution. Everyone who cheered when the blade fell. Everyone who threw her body into that chasm like she was garbage. We'll find her. We'll kill her. Will you? Rebecca laughed, and it was a cold, bitter sound. You couldn't kill her the first time. What makes you think you can kill her now when she's faster, stronger, and angrier than anything you've ever faced? Valtrax turned to leave, but Rebecca's voice stopped him. You wanted to teach humanity a lesson about respecting your laws. Congratulations, Commander. You taught us. We learned that mercy is wasted on species like yours. We learned that sometimes monsters need to be created to deal with monsters. Valtrax didn't respond. He just walked out, already knowing that his empire would never be the same. The first colony to go silent was Mining Station Theta-7, a small outpost on the edge of Draconian space. Home to 200 workers and their families. The communications array stopped transmitting at 22:47 Standard Time. Command tried to raise them for 6 hours before sending a response team. What they found turned hardened soldiers pale. The entire station was intact. No structural damage. No signs of a firefight. But every single Draconian inside was dead. Not just dead, their bodies were torn apart with surgical precision. The security chief, a judge who'd served at Emily's trial, had been found in his quarters. The walls around him were scorched black, as if something incredibly hot had burned through them. The response team's leader sent back one shaky report. Whatever did this wasn't random. It knew exactly who it was looking for. 3 days later, a military listening post near the fourth planet reported unusual activity. Then the transmission cut out. When reinforcements arrived, they found the same scene. Selective destruction. Specific targets. One of the dead was a council member who'd voted for Emily's execution. By week 2, 7 locations had gone dark. By week 3 it was 15. The pattern became impossible to ignore. Every attack site had one thing in common. Someone there had been involved in the trial or execution of Emily Hayes. The Draconian military set up monitoring stations with every sensor they had. Thermal imaging, motion detectors, electromagnetic scanners, everything. At Outpost Delta 9 they finally caught something on camera. It was 3:15 in the morning. The perimeter alarm triggered and the automated defense systems came online. The recording showed something moving through the darkness, too fast for the human eye to track properly. The footage had to be slowed down to 1/10 speed just to see it clearly. The figure was humanoid but wrong. It stood maybe 6 feet tall, but its proportions were off. The arms were too long, the fingers too sharp. Scales covered parts of its body, shimmering between metallic silver and deep crimson depending on how the light hit them. The eyes glowed, not like biological eyes should, but like someone had put reactor cores behind them. The defense turrets opened fire. Plasma bolts that could punch through tank armor hit the figure dead center. It stumbled, fell to one knee, and the guards watching the monitors thought they'd won. Then it stood back up. The scales on its chest were scorched but already healing, new growth spreading across the damaged tissue like watching a time-lapse video. The figure looked directly at the camera, tilted its head, and smiled. Then it moved, covering 30 yards in what looked like a single step. The recording ended there. So did everyone at that outpost. The footage was sent to every military installation in the Empire. Valtrax watched it 17 times, looking for weaknesses, for patterns, for anything that could help them stop this thing. He found nothing. Then the message came. Every communication device in Draconian space activated simultaneously. Personal communicators, military channels, civilian broadcasts, even the emergency systems. Billions of devices, all playing the same transmission. It was Emily's voice, but not quite. There was something else layered underneath, like multiple voices speaking at once, or the sound of metal scraping against stone. You created a monster, the voice said. You took someone who wanted to help you, who studied your biology to cure your diseases, and you murdered her. You threw her body to a beast and celebrated. Now face what you've created. The transmission ended. But the damage was done. Panic spread through the Empire like wildfire. Civilian populations started evacuating the core worlds. Ships launched from every major planet, overloading the traffic control systems. Some Draconians fled to colonies in other systems. Others tried to hide in bunkers deep underground. The government tried to maintain order, but fear was stronger than authority. The military deployed everything they had. Battle cruisers, drop ships, orbital defense platforms. They set up kill zones around important government buildings, places they knew she'd target eventually. Thousands of soldiers, tens of thousands of automated weapons, all waiting. It didn't matter. Emily hit a council member's estate on the second moon of their homeworld. The estate had 50 guards, reinforced walls, and an underground bunker. She was in and out in 12 minutes. The guards' weapons didn't even slow her down. One survivor, hiding in a supply closet, reported that she'd moved through the building like water, flowing around obstacles, appearing and disappearing. With each attack she got better. The nanomachines were learning from every encounter, adapting to new threats. The Draconian military tried electromagnetic pulses to disrupt the machines. Emily shrugged them off. They tried biological weapons designed to target her DNA. She absorbed them and came back stronger. They tried vacuum bombs that could level city blocks. She walked out of the crater looking annoyed. Valtrax hadn't slept in 4 days. His empire was crumbling, not from an invading fleet, but from one being they'd created through their own arrogance. He'd sent assassins, elite soldiers, even suicide bombers. Nothing worked. In desperation he went to find Rebecca. She was in her quarters, sitting in front of a wall of monitors showing news feeds from across the empire. Images of burning buildings, evacuating civilians, military failures. She was drinking coffee, calm as ever. "Call her off," Valtrax said without preamble. His voice was hoarse from shouting orders. "Please. We'll give you anything. Reparations, treaties, will change our laws. Just make her stop." Rebecca didn't turn around. "Can you bring back the debt, Commander? Can you undo murder? We made a mistake." "A mistake." Now she did turn, and her eyes were hard as stone. "You had something precious. My daughter was brilliant, kind, dedicated to understanding the universe. She wanted to help your people. And you murdered her to feed a beast. You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. She's killed thousands. And how many thousands have you killed over your empire's history?" Rebecca stood up, walking closer. "How many species have you conquered? How many innocents died because they violated some ancient law they didn't know about?" Valtrax's shoulders sagged. "What do you want from us?" "I want you to understand what humanity really is," Rebecca said softly. "You thought we were newcomers, weak and scared, barely worth noticing. But we're not. We're the inheritors of the galaxy's first civilization. The predecessors didn't die out. They evolved. They transformed. And we carry that legacy in every cell of our bodies. Please." Rebecca's laugh was bitter. "Did my daughter plead? Did you listen when she begged for her life? Did you care when she tried to explain she was trying to help?" She leaned in close. "You taught her that mercy was weakness. Now she's teaching you the same lesson." Valtrax left without another word. Behind him, Rebecca returned to her monitors, watching as the empire that killed her daughter burned. Retried ED. 4 months. That's how long it took for a 10,000-year-old empire to fall apart. Emily didn't destroy the Draconian civilization with fire and fury. She did something far more effective. She dismantled it piece by piece, targeting the foundation that held their society together. Every corrupt official, every brutal enforcer, every judge who'd sent innocents to their deaths, she found them all. But something strange happened during those 4 months. The attacks became more precise, less destructive. She stopped killing guards who were just doing their jobs. She avoided civilian casualties completely. It was like watching someone learn to control a weapon they didn't fully understand yet. The Galactic Council watched this chaos with growing alarm. The Draconians were one of the oldest members, powerful and influential. Their collapse would create a vacuum that could destabilize entire sectors. After weeks of debate, the Council finally voted to intervene. A fleet of 30 ships representing 12 different species arrived at the Draconian homeworld. They came expecting to find ruins, maybe a war zone. Instead, they found something far stranger. The planet was intact. Cities still functioned. Power grids still worked. But the government buildings, the military command centers, the mansions of the ruling class, those were empty shells, abandoned or destroyed with surgical precision. The Council's lead diplomat, an insectoid species called the Varanthi, requested a meeting with all parties involved. They set up in what remained of the High Council chamber, the same room where Emily had been executed 4 months earlier. Valtrax arrived first, looking like he'd aged 20 years. His scales were dull, his movements slow. Behind him came what was left of the Draconian leadership, maybe 30 officials from a government that once had thousands. Rebecca came next, flanked by human security. She'd barely changed at all, still calm, still composed. The Varanthi diplomat found that deeply unsettling. Then they waited for Emily. She didn't make them wait long. The chamber's main doors didn't open. Emily simply appeared in the center of the room, materializing from nothing like she'd walked through the walls themselves. Several council members jumped in surprise. Valtrak stepped back instinctively. But this wasn't the monster from the security footage. Emily stood about 6 feet tall now, her posture perfect and relaxed. Her skin seemed to shift as you watched it, flowing between human flesh and metallic scales that caught the light like liquid chrome. Her hair was longer than before, dark with streaks of crimson running through it. Her eyes were the most striking feature, human-shaped but glowing with an inner light, shifting between soft brown and brilliant gold. She looked at the assembled council members and smiled. It was a gentle smile, almost sad. "Thank you for coming," she said. Her voice was clear and human, with just a hint of something else underneath, like hearing music through water. The Varanthi diplomat cleared his throat. "We are here to negotiate a peaceful resolution to this conflict. The Draconian Empire has requested." "I know what they want," Emily interrupted softly. "They want me to stop. They want their empire back. They want to pretend none of this happened." She walked slowly around the chamber, her footsteps silent. "But I have demands of my own." "We're listening," the diplomat said carefully. Emily stopped in front of Valtrax. The Draconian commander, who'd once seemed so powerful, now couldn't meet her eyes. "Total reformation of Draconian law," Emily stated. "No more executions for crimes that don't involve actual violence. No more feeding prisoners to beasts. No more treating other species like they're beneath you." "Agreed," Valtrax whispered. "Reparations to every species you've wronged. Full reparations, not token gestures. You have the wealth. Use it to repair the damage you've caused over millennia." Valtrax nodded weakly. "And one more thing." Emily's hand began to change, the flesh flowing like water, transforming into something that looked like a weapon but was far more complex. Energy crackled around it, power that made the air itself vibrate. "If I ever hear of you returning to your old ways, if I catch even a rumor of you executing innocents or torturing prisoners, I will come back. And next time, I won't be so gentle." She let the weapon dissolve back into a normal hand. "The alternative is simple," Emily continued, addressing the whole council now. "I can end the Draconian species today. It would take me maybe an hour. I know where every one of them is. I know their biology better than they do. I could make them extinct before the sun sets." The chamber was dead silent. "So choose. Evolution or extinction." The council voted without debate. The Draconians agreed immediately, their pride shattered. It took less than 10 minutes to draft the basic terms. The age of Draconian dominance was over. As the council members filed out to formalize the agreements, Rebecca finally approached her daughter. They stood facing each other, and for the first time in months, Emily's confident mask cracked. "Mom," she whispered. "Baby girl," Rebecca said, her voice breaking. "I'm not the Emily you lost," Emily said softly. "I remember being her. I remember our house on Earth, remember Dad teaching me to ride a bike, remember you reading to me before bed. I remember loving you both more than anything." She reached out with a hand that was fully human now, touching Rebecca's face. "But I'm also something else. Something new. They killed your daughter and what came back is different." Rebecca grabbed Emily's hand, holding it tight. "You're still my daughter. Changed, yes. But still mine." Emily smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. "I'm going to leave, Mom. The galaxy is full of species like the Draconians, bullies who think power gives them the right to hurt others. Someone needs to remind them it doesn't." "I know," Rebecca said, though her heart was breaking. "I know you do." Emily turned to face the council members one last time. "Update your records. Humanity isn't some junior species anymore. We're predecessor inheritors. We carry the legacy of the galaxy's first civilization in our DNA. We remember what they knew. We can do what they did." She looked directly at the Varanthi diplomat. "Spread the word. Human mercy is a gift we choose to give. It's not weakness. It's not something you can exploit. And if you mistake our kindness for vulnerability, you'll learn the same lesson the Draconians did." Then she was gone, vanishing in a shimmer of light that left afterimages in everyone's vision. The Galactic Council reclassified humanity that same day. They created a new designation that hadn't been used in over 1 billion years: predecessor inheritors. Species capable of things the current galaxy couldn't fully understand. Rebecca returned to Earth a hero, though she never felt like one. She'd lost her daughter and gained something else. Something powerful and terrifying and still somehow caring. The Draconian Empire reformed over the following years, becoming more peaceful, more just. They never forgot the lesson Emily taught them. And somewhere out in the darkness between stars, Emily Hayes traveled. She found slavers and stopped them. She discovered corrupt governments and toppled them. She protected the weak from the strong, always moving, never resting. Some called her a guardian angel. Others called her a demon. She didn't care about the labels. She just remembered being a girl who wanted to help people, and she made sure no one else would die the way she had.